Okay, let's go ahead and move on here to the oil front. And obviously, this is something which is very important, funding the Russian war machine. Here at home, though, it has huge political consequences. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, which is that the national average in the United States for a gallon of gas is already $4 a gallon. That's the highest price at the pump since 2008. It actually went higher than I possibly expected, Krystal. And the price of Brent crude for a barrel is currently $136, which is, 150 is considered a catastrophe. So we're already on our way to some record high gas prices. A national average of $5. I said $4.50 previously. We could see it soon. I didn't expect $4 this quickly. I think $5 is now very much on the table. In next month, I watched over the weekend every day as the price continued to increase at the pump. Which is really just a catastrophe for major working class Americans. So obviously this is going to go ahead and ignite a massive fight here at home over banning Russian oil. So this is the big fight with the United States and its allies, because we actually do not import that much Russian crude oil. So when I went ahead and checked this morning, it's about 3% of imports. Some estimates, it's 10%. That being said, it's not going to have a major impact, at least here at home, although 10%, still a decent amount. When you're paying $4 a gallon, any little scrap helps. But where it is going to have the biggest effect is Europe and China. So Europe and China take 85% of Russia's crude oil exports. Europe in particular importing nearly as much as China, with millions and millions of barrels per day that are imported to that country. So this is if there is a ban, it is going to have a massive supply shock. And that is currently what is being considered by the European Union, the U.S. allies, and the United States. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was talking about this over the weekend. Let's take a listen.
We're adding to the sanctions virtually every day. We're doing it in coordination with Europeans. When there's a difference between us, if there's a loophole on one side or the other, we're closing it. That's part of the work that I was doing here. And when it comes to oil, Russian oil, I was on the phone yesterday with the president and other members of the cabinet on exactly this subject. And we are now talking to our European partners and allies to look in a coordinated way at the prospect of banning the import of Russian oil while making sure that there is still an appropriate supply of oil on world markets. That's a very active discussion as we speak.
So that is the biggest news that came out of that, Krystal, considering the Russian oil ban. Now, this is going to cause a major domestic political fight about a couple of things. Obviously, high gas prices, people freak out. And they should, especially at $4 a gallon. That's a tax on every working class person in this country, on every average household finance. Right. And that is also going to cause a major discussion around drilling here at home, around energy capacity, and it's going to expose some little bit of holes in diplomacy. So first and foremost, we saw from Nancy Pelosi say that she does support a ban on Russian oil. As Speaker of the House, this is something which Congress could also act on in terms of export controls and all of that, but does not support any new drilling. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
Madam Speaker, there's been a push by some Democrats to ban the import of Russian oil. And I believe that Senators Manchin and Murkowski are going to put forth a bill on that today. Where do you stand?
I'm all for that. Ban it.
Ban the oil.
Ban the oil come from Russia. Yeah. From the sprawl and others, but I'm not for drilling on public lands.
So this is going to be the big domestic political fight, Krystal. You and I were talking about this. I actually support any sort of drilling or fracking, which is going to bring down the price in the immediate term. But you make an excellent point, which is that we don't actually have that good of a refining capacity, which is that fracking in particular, you can get oil out of the ground in not that particularly long period of time, which could relieve some price pressure. But the choke point that we have right now in our refining capacity makes it so that even if we did drill, it is not going to bring down the price in the way that we would need.
Yeah, so oil, I was reading for, to bring like new oil onto the market, it takes at least 6 months.
Right.
So even that is not going to bring the price down in the short term. In addition, I mean, there's kind of this narrative because of some of Biden's rhetoric around climate that he's reduced the amount of drilling. He actually hasn't. They went through with the largest sale of public lands, 80 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico during his term. So if more fracking and more drilling was going to be our, key to low, stable prices, we would already have them because we've had administration after administration who has had exactly that policy. So that's why I actually agree with the idea that what we should be focused on is, and we're going to talk about some of these other deals around the world. We're talking to the Venezuelans, which is very interesting.
We'll get to that.
Potentially Iran, the nuclear deals on the table. They're also talking to Saudi, which I think that part is insane. Like, if you're doing this for humanitarian reasons, the Saudis are currently, with our help, perpetrating the worst humanitarian crisis on the entire planet. But you know, the more that we drill, the more that we increase our dependence on fossil fuels, the more we kick the can down the road on becoming actually energy independent, where we have a stable, renewable supply, including nuclear, that isn't going to leave us at the whims of countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Russia into the future. So I know it sounds like, oh, well, let's just drill more and then that'll lower the prices. The reality is that's not going to do anything in the short term, and it's just going to make us more dependent on those sources in the future.
I think it's a dual source, which is you got to show the American people you're going to do everything possible in order to bring the price down in the short term, in the near term. We already know that this is going to happen now for the next year or so. So I would say go ahead and drill, but that is not the thing that is going to solve the contest in the long run. And that's why I think it has to be paired, obviously, with the massive nuclear investment. The problem I have with our current fights is that you see the fossil fuel guys and Joe Manchin and the coal people make it seem as if you just drill, then that's going to solve all of our problems. It's like, look, we already found out that's not the work.
We've been going down that
we
path
have
for
a
a
global,
long time, guys.
We have a global path. It's not like, you know, natural gas and fracking doesn't bring down carbon emissions by 50%. But what if I told you there's this technology that has 4 to 5% of natural gas? It would be a shocker in order to find that out. Now, on the diplomacy side, this is another reason why we need to wean ourselves off of this. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, which is that American officials are traveling to Venezuela, a Russian ally. The reason why is that they want the Venezuelans to pump oil and they want to buy some of that oil. The reason that it matters is that we had not even recognized the Maduro regime as legitimate over the government of Venezuela, and there have been all sorts of sanctions that have been put into place.
Guaido.
That's right. We were pretending that Juan Guaido, I forget what it was, like the speaker or whatever. We said that he was the president of that country. But now that we need the oil, we're like, okay, Venezuela, let's start pumping and let's get some of this here into the U.S. Also, last night, there's a consideration of breaking news from Axios that the U.S. is considering deploying some diplomats to Saudi Arabia, specifically to try and shore up relations with MBS to get them to pump more oil to relieve price pressure as well. MBS has been playing footsie and really playing his hand. Most recently, I saw him talking about pulling U.S. money out of the United States and about, you know, very openly kind of acknowledging that he's screwing with our domestic politics in terms of oil production. And the reason why is right now they have the most leverage over us humanly possible. Part of the reason why the Biden administration wanted to take a stand against Saudi Arabia on the Jamal Khashoggi killing, but, you know, Yemen and other things like that, and now making it so that we're going to have to go beg them hat in hand. And it just exposes, like you said, which is that, okay, to punish the Russians, now we have to go hat in hand to the Saudis and the Venezuelans. It's like, pick your poison. You know, we have Venezuela, Iran, we have Saudi Arabia. There are other, you know, in terms of the other countries that pump oil, not a lot of them particularly great U.S. allies. This is why it has to be paired, I think, these diplomatic efforts, but also you have to show America that you're trying to do something to drop the price of gas. In the long run, you have to sell it with some sort of, we need a speech from the president being like, we can never let this happen again.
Yeah,
let's go ahead.
We need to
and
never
invest.
be in this situation again.
So let's do everything in our possible power in the next year or two to bring the price down. And in the long run, we are making sure that this will never, ever happen to America and its allies. I think we're in for a real crunch. I think this is going to be massive economic impact in terms of the lost dollars that were going to be spent otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, gas is a relatively inelastic product. You have to drive. Most people do. They may decrease in the short term, but, you know, we found out in 2008, 2009, most people did not reduce the amount of driving that they did. They just had to curtail spending in other areas of their lives.
There's a lot to say about this, and I'm sure this is a topic we're going to continue to talk a lot
That's
about.
a lot.
With regards to Venezuela, I mean, I don't support the sanctions that we have on them anyway, which are contributing to the misery of the population there, just as I think that we've gone too far with the sanctions against Russia that are causing misery among the Russian population. It's also, some of the demands that we have in this negotiation are sort of amusing and show how bad our policy towards Venezuela has been with regard to the whole Juan Guaido coup attempt situation. Part of what we're demanding is the release of some of the former Green Beret, I should be clear, commandos who were down there thinking that they were involved somehow in the coup.
I forgot about
You remember
this.
all that? Yeah, so that's part
This
of
is all in a very back part of
in
it.
order to lift the sanctions and reestablish relations and all of that, that's one of our demands is
Yes.
we want our Green Beret commandos that were running around causing trouble in your country back. But I think it's also important to note that right now, the latest polling says 80% of Americans support banning Russian oil. Now, I would also say that people can be very unreliable on issue polling and support, in theory, the idea of banning Russian oil, but then very much not support when they go to the gas pump and it costs $5 a gallon.
$5.50 or something like that. Yeah,
So,
just wait.
I think you see a huge bipartisan push right now. Marco Rubio also in favor. You see a huge bipartisan effort of let's go all the way and let's ban Russian oil because they see that broad public support. But again, just because the support is there for the idea in theory does not mean that when people who are already really stretched with inflation and struggling to be able to make rent, make mortgage payments, put food on the table, keep body and soul together, those costs are going to take a big chunk out of the American public. And, I think there will be a political price to pay for that. There's just no question about it. I mean, that's the way it goes when you look at history. Right. People really, rightly, are... it really hurts them when gas prices go up because we are so dependent on it right now.
Yeah, this is the thing that nobody ever wants to acknowledge, I find. It's for most people, energy policy means heating bill and gas. That's it. That's literally it. That's what most people care about. And so when you're gonna look at the fact that we already have record high heating prices. Luckily, it's getting a little bit warmer, at least here in the DMV, but that was a big tax on a lot of Americans. Heating oil and all that was up 90%. Add in now $4 a gas average price, hearing from people in California. I believe the California average is $5, which is already, that's 50 million people living. That's a sixth of the entire country. Fresno apparently has $6 a gallon. So we could see a situation where the national average is $5, then you have the nation's largest state by population, which has $6.50 or something like that. That is a massive economic drain out of the country. So you're going to be hearing about this all day long, and I think rightfully it's got a lot of lessons about what we need to do in the future, and especially about how we run our policy. But most importantly, it's going to have an impact geopolitically, because I do think that they are probably going to go ahead and go through with this, and they're not thinking through the consequences. All of us are going to be paying a lot more for gas in the near term if they do go ahead and ban this, because remember, even if we don't import that much Russian oil, oil is a global market, and the price of barrel contributes to the price at pump. So whenever our oil is sold out into the global market, it's priced by everybody, not necessarily by U.S. demand, although there is some impact there. So just think about that whenever we're thinking about what exactly to do and more, and in terms of the sanctions, because this is one of those that could have a significant impact here at home and on our own country's domestic politics.
What I saw is roughly 50% of the price at the gas pump is determined by the price per barrel on the global commodities market.
Right.
So the fact that we don't personally import that much Russian oil doesn't mean that you won't be affected. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.